Welcome to another round of videos about audio. Welcome to the demo room. If you like this channel or you find it at least remotely interesting, go ahead and click that subscribe and like button and let's just have some fun. So, my last video, I was thinking about it and I was just like, we need to go a little more in depth. We need another video on console management. So, let's go ahead and we're going to just go right over here. We're going to load LV1. Take a couple minutes to load. I have not looked at this session since we put it together a week ago. While it's opening, I'll just switch over to my screen. Oh, we got, I don't have the licenses for these particular plugins right now. Last night, I built a session. That little pop-up doesn't really matter, so I'll hit skip again. Okay. So I built a festival. No, I was on a different one. Okay, this is where we were, and I have not looked at this session since. Okay, so I am today using the Digigrid D interface with a Lewitt MTP 240 or 340 CM microphone. It's a condenser mic that Lewitt has designed for extremely high SPL with very, very high gain before feedback. So you could take this out on a really loud stage and crank it up and get that condenser benefits without the feedback issues as much. Today I am using a high pass filter on it, just the onboard high pass filter on the Digigrid D. It's probably sitting around 80 or 100 hertz. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, so let's take a look at our session here. I have not looked at this session since we built it, so I don't really remember exactly where we were. But one thing that I noticed is that when I get right up on the microphone, there's some buzzing that's happening. When I touch the computer that I'm using to stream to before I upload for the capture, the buzzing, check this out. So I'm going to, if you can hear it, there's a little bit of buzz on my voice. If I touch the computer, it goes away. So maybe you can hear it, maybe not, but that's kind of interesting. So let's take a look at what we have here. We have kick in, kick out, top, bottom, hat, tom 1 through 4, overheads, bass channels, couple of guitar 1, guitar 2, open, skip, acoustic, skip a few keys, skip a few, and then we got our vocals at the end. Okay, so let's just go and explore what we have here. So we got some effects going, some subgroups going, and then our final subgroups. Okay, yep, so this is all making sense. Some reverbs right there, cool. Oh yeah, that's the reverb returns. Yeah. Okay, so this is the sends. This is the returns. Our master section. Let's take a look here. Nothing's going on there. Subs left, right, fill, smart. Let's take a look here. Channel. So fills is coming off of the subgroups, which is what I found works best for me. Subs is off the left, right, which I just started doing, and I love it. I got my coffee happening. I grind my own beans. I've been doing French press coffee, and I was doing a Beach Boys show, and they had honey at the coffee table. So I was like, I'll try that. I tried honey in my coffee, and I've never looked back. Mind blowing. It's so smooth. Sugar's great, but it's sugar, and I'm just trying to be more aware of the calories and sugar and fat and all that. For years, I've been that way. So I put honey in there, and I've never looked back. It's just, if you've never had honey in your coffee, you got to do it. It's life-changing. So let's take a look here. Hopefully that was the end of my spiel today on coffee, but I am addicted to coffee. So that's something you should know about me. I love sandwiches, I love food, and I love cookies. And my entire life revolves around mixing audio and building sessions on consoles and learning everything I can about mixing consoles and getting that next edge and just constantly striving to find Just one little thing that's going to take it to the next level, no matter what that may be. So let's dive in and see what we can do here. Okay, so like I said in the other video, what I do is I get my inputs all labeled, and I might wait on subgroups till the end. But then once my inputs are done and labeled, on your patching page, since they're labeled, everything is here. So you can scroll up and down with your mouse wheel, and now you can see what everything is, and then you can patch whatever you want. We haven't put in any devices yet, but that's okay. And then your outputs, your mix buses, and internal device, and so on. I love device to device because on the left is your source from, the right is your destination. There are some consoles where you have to patch inside the console to make a jack go to another place. Where this one, it just shows up once you insert it, and you select your source, and then you send it to a destination. So this is how you would do virtual sound check, for example. So you have your Waves cards or your Waves I/O devices on your from, and then you patch it to a computer. That's how you capture your audio. For doing virtual sound check, the typical way to do it is you go to input B. Up here at the very top are your sources, and this is your destinations. So you select the computer, and you click and you drag down. And now, once you have input B, it's pretty simple to go right here to user, pick one of these, it doesn't matter, and then you go over to flip AB inputs. If you hit this button, it will flip them. So it says flip AB. So let's pretend we have some I/O set up here. It's set as A, right here. If you press this button, you go to channel, now it's on B. And that's across the board. See that? All these channels are on AB. So we'll go back. Okay. As of right now, we're just looking at the console. We're not passing audio into it yet. That'll be coming down the line in further videos. So, what do we got here? We've got to prep this for a show now. I get my beginning set up, then I go to the end. I get my final done, right, left, sub, fill. I do this because when you're standing on stage, red is right, blue is not right. And that's talking about your in-ears. So, if you're standing on stage, to your left ear, let's see, your left ear is blue, and your right ear is red, okay, on your in-ears. That's how the color code. So, stage right should be, red is right, blue is not right. So, stage right should be red. So, house left, PA, is red. House right, PA, is blue. So, did I say that right? House left is red, house right is blue, because it's a mirror image of the in-ear monitors. I'm a monitor engineer who does front of house. And so that's just the mindset I have on that. Now, something that I do if I'm doing monitors, so red is right. So let's go to, this is, if I lay this out as stage right, your typical front of house would be stage right, center, stage left, drums for a small band. So if you go here, what you can do, red is right. I go to the middle and I pick maybe a different color, white maybe, and then there. So now I know this is that up here on the left, monitor 1 is stage right, center, stage left, and then drums, green, because I play bass. Bass is my favorite color, or bass instrument, and green is my favorite color. Well, bass and drums go together. I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense or if that's just dumb, but, that's a way to do it. So now all I have to do is look, stage right, center, stage left, drums. Done. So that's a way to manage what's what. Let's just go back to, I want to just do defaults on this stuff. because that's getting a little bit beyond what we want to do at the moment. Okay, so what do we need to do to prep for a band? Well, we have these guys. We have that guy. We've got our final stuff that we got to do. We got some reverbs. These are the returns. You got your sends. You got your groups. And you got your channels. So this is where I like to have a keyboard. I have an actual number pad that I've used for typing in values. I come from the analog world. The Mackie 8 console, the Soundcraft, the Soundcraft Spirit Live, any of those really, the lower cost ones, the Mackies, the Spirit Lives, the Allen and Heaths, Carvin. They had a high pass filter button, just like this interface I'm using has a button. So this is what I've always done as my starting point. That high pass filter button is usually 80 or 100. That's usually what they were. I've got a Mackie in storage still, like 24 channel. Is it VLZ? I think maybe some viewers could know what that one is. But the Soundcraft was either 80 or 100. I think the GL 2200s and GL 2400 from Allen and Heath was 80 or 100. The other thing is your mains are crossed over from your subs to your mids is usually 100 hertz, maybe 90, maybe 80. So I'm talking the most basic old school. How I started was you had subs, you had mids, and you had highs. And then you had a basic crossover that all it did was split it up, and you had a gain knob or a trim knob or a volume knob or whatever the correct term for that knob is. I don't recall. It's been a while since I've had to set one up. Pretty simple, really. But so because subs are generally crossed over at 100 hertz, what I'll do on the snare top is I'll go to 100, just type it in. And so now you see that when I turned it on, it went to there. This is your starting point. This is not the set it in stone and we're not going to touch it again because there's no such thing as set it and forget it mixing. Let's go back to there. Okay. So you can get rid of that guy. You can get rid of that guy. That guy. Yeah, let's call that good. Okay. If you hold Alt in on your keyboard, you see it lights up down here? If you hold Alt in, you can drag this across to those channels. And now you got 100 hertz. Oh, yeah, that delay. Yeah, so you can make your snare deeper. That's right. Hi-hat. No one ever told me where to set a hi-hat high-pass filter. See, back on the analog board, it used to be... I think maybe there were 10 times on an analog board that I actually used a hi-hat mic. But once the X32 came out, I figured, why don't we just run that high-pass filter as high as it'll go? Which is it's either 400 or 500 hertz. So I'm going off of that, say 500 hertz. You don't need all that clang and junk in a hi-hat. You just need that nice sizzle. Okay? There's different thoughts on that, but that's my view on it. You don't want all that just clanginess on there. At least I don't want it. Me personally. You can do whatever you want, but me personally, I don't want that. Overheads. Let's take a look here. So, let's see. If we go here, now we can kind of take a look at some stuff. Overheads. I still have that same thought. So my use of overheads is I want to capture the full kit with the overheads. Kick, like it's going to get some kick. It's going to get snare. It's going to get toms. And it's definitely going to get the cymbals. So I like to start at 120 on them because then you still have your attack from your toms. You're still going to hear the snare. It's not going to be that big in your face sound, but you're going to get some of that. So let's go ahead and pull this guy off, and then let's move this over here. I used Alt to basically copy it. So now it's copied. Yep. So now it matches. Now, this is just starting point for when you show up at your show. This is not a final. This is where we're going to end up. Let's take a look at our subgroups now. Bass dirty, clean dirty. And what does our final one look like? Band final. Okay. If I had the ability on this console, which you have to get into the much higher end ones to do group to group to group to group routing, I actually built a session in Studio One where I did multiple groups, like a group into a group, which was going into another group, which had several groups going into another one. Something like that. So I had the 2 kick channels on a kick drum subgroup. I had that going into that subgroup. So let's just say like this. So kick group, okay. I had that kick group. I had kick dirty, kick clean. So kick group was being sent, this one was being sent to this guy and to this guy. And then it was, let's see if I can remember right. Snare dirty, snare clean. I'm probably spelling very badly, but I'm not. They pay me to mix, not to spell. Tom's clean, dirty. Tom's clean. There may have been a couple, and then more. Then I had drums final. I had the kick group being sent into here and here. Then I had these two. I had snare clean and dirty going into a snare. Or no, I did the snare and then I sent that snare, because there's 2 mics. So I did the snare channel just like this. The 2 mics go in here. These get sent in here. And then these guys get sent to the drum final. I did a kick final. And then I sent, yeah, so then I had the 2 snare mics going into a snare dirty and snare clean, and then a snare final. And then I had Tom's dirty, Tom's clean, Tom's final. Then I took all of those final ones and sent them into the drums final. It was really complicated, and I was just seeing what I could do. Going back to bass guitar. On 1, 2, 4. Sorry for the sidetrack on that. Hopefully that will make sense with what I'm about to say. Mon 10. Okay. So that whole doing the 2 kick mics into a subgroup and then treating that one subgroup, because I don't have a bass subgroup that's being sent into this guy and this guy, I'm going to go and do my channel treatment instead of a group treatment. I guess we could say it that way. Yeah, so I did a low pass or a high pass and a low pass. There's a video coming out where I accidentally call this the high pass, but so low pass, high pass, low pass, high pass. Guitars, I'm doing the same thing there. I'm doing, oh yeah, a low pass here, and then I think the thought was I was going to do high pass here, or low pass. I'm getting terms mixed around. Okay, so what I do on guitar is 8,000. Okay. The reason for this is the grit of a guitar, the bite, is sitting right around, that's your overtones. Okay. So that's generally where a guitar likes to bite. And then the body of a guitar is usually around 250. That's generally, these are where your spikes are on a guitar. That's where they stand out. Now, here's an interesting thing. A vocal, a male vocal, usually sits around 250. So now you have a conflict right there. You've got a guitar and you've got a vocal that sit at the exact same frequency. So now you have to decide how you're going to balance that out with EQ moves, compression, balance, so on and so forth, right? You got to decide what you're going to do there. The bite of the guitar is 5K. Well, your vocal definition is about 2.5. So it's not really going to be as in the way, like number 2 is vocal, number 3 is guitar, vocal, guitar. Now, every vocal is different. Every guitar is different. These are just starting points. These are just some rough areas to keep in mind. Sometimes, like a female vocal can be around 3K. So this is not every single voice is always going to be this. Sometimes guitars are going to be higher, sometimes they're going to be lower for that overtone. So this is just some guidelines. So let's hit flat. And I actually want to do, flat. Okay. So your guitar channel. So this is my starting point on guitar. There's one guy that I've had to run this up to 250 on his guitar. So it's a starting point. Okay. So let's get rid of this guy. Hit Alt, drag him over. Done. Look at that, huh? Bass channel. Did we do that? Yep. I do this on bass as well. Okay. 30 hertz because in music, you don't like if you have a band playing guitar, bass, drums, keys, so on. Just a traditional, like let's say 4-piece rock band, 4-piece band, whatever. You don't need to go down below 30 hertz very often on that. A lot of guys play 4 strings. 4 strings don't necessarily go down to 30 hertz anyway. 5-string can. 4-string generally, it can, but it doesn't always. There is a Spanish band I mix, though, that they play a 4-string, and just the way the bass players touch the strings when they're playing, it just is so full and so big. They've got no pedals, just a tuner, and it just, like right around in here, it's just a solid low end with plenty of definition up here. It's awesome. I love it. They're such great musicians. So we did our bass, our guitars, acoustic guitar. Acoustic guitars, I have found, are always challenging. It's not impossible. It's always challenging, though. So let's look at our channel. We did some high-pass filters here, too. So you got a high pass there at 100. Yep. For your subs, right? Keys. Channel. Keys are an interesting thing as well because you have 88 keys. You have a low A. You have the 88th key, and I should know what that note is, but the low one is A, right? So what are you going to do with your high-pass filter? You have to make up your mind what you want to do as your starting point. I don't really have a set in stone. I'll just randomly pick a number. It's maybe 60 hertz. It's just, you never know what you're going to get unless you work with the artist already. But keyboards they're just a full range instrument. They cover everything. So what are you going to do with that, right? Let's take a look here. Okay, so we can get rid of this high pass filter. And I'll just copy it there. These are spare channels that can do whatever you want, whatever you need them for. Vocals. These are your absolute most important channels right here. Nothing else matters. 100 hertz. Great. We have a good starting point on that. Your vocals. Normally, if a normal setup, let's say you've got 4 vocals. As you look at the stage, you've got house left, center, house right, and house left, house center, house right drums, right? So that's normally, as you look at the stage, that's what you typically would want to do. There are times where you'll do it a different order, but it doesn't matter who the lead singer is. It doesn't matter if it's the lead singer with a bunch of hired guys that play for them. That doesn't matter for your what order you do it in. You always do it in the same order so that you can deliver a better product to your customer. So I don't care if this is the biggest artist in the world right here, the star. I don't care. They're gonna go in where I know where they will be. I'm not gonna put him on channel one because he's the one that makes the money, so he goes on one. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna put him right here. And now there are different mindsets on that. I think I don't want to cause any uproar here, but I think a British way of doing it is I know that this is done over in England once in a while. I don't know if it's that this is how it is now, but they've put the lead singer here and then their instrument here. That was a British way of doing it. Now, I realize that that's not every single person from England. I get that. I'm not trying to cause any issues there on that, but I've just seen where some people have put the lead singer here and then their instrument next. And I kind of get where they're coming from, but at the same time, that isn't the way I work. You can do whatever you want. Absolutely do whatever you want. This is about just throwing around some ideas to see what we can come up with. So we have high pass filters set up on a bunch of stuff. We've got high passes going. We got our subgroups happening. We got effects happening. Okay. So let's look at routing for a second. These are not sent to any subgroups. These are. So guitar, let's look at what our subgroup is. 3 and 7. So guitar, 3, 7. 3, 7. Okay. Then we've got vocal dirty and vocal clean, 4, 8. Okay. So now we have 4, 8, and 4, 8. 4, 8. 4, 8. You guys should feel free to comment which microphone you like the sound of my voice with. I'm going to be using all different kinds of microphones, and it'd be cool to get some opinions on that, what people think. Acoustic guitars and keyboards. What do we got? We don't have subgroups for them. Okay, that's fine. Let's just send them to the mains. Who cares? Or just throwing around ideas, right? Okay, so next up. The second mix I ever did, I didn't know about proximity effect. I didn't know that that was what it was called. The singer was on a 58, and I'm like, how come when this guy gets up on his mic, his voice sounds different than when he's away from the mic? How come it isn't a consistent sound? Why is it boomy? Now, why is it piercing and screechy? Maybe it was a little bit of system tuning that could have been addressed a little bit, but I was like, I need a tool that can take care of that. I'm sure everybody knows where I'm going on this one, but I found out about the Wave C6, which I probably don't have a license on this machine for, because this is just one for at home. C6, yep. C6 is a dynamic or a multi-band compressor where you can compress frequency ranges and turn them down. So I used that for a lot of years until this one came out, which I don't have a license on that either. F6 is a dynamic EQ. So now you can take care of piercing frequencies or booming frequencies. So huge. It's wonderful. And yeah, so let's take a look at some things. So you could use C6 or F6 on it, on all your vocals. Maybe the acoustic guitar, because acoustic guitars are always a challenge unless you've really got a really good acoustic, or your acoustic guitar player really, really takes care of their stuff to make sure that it sounds the best possible for you. Normally, they're a challenge. So yeah, so we've got F6 on all of our vocals to take care of anything, because vocals are so important. You could do it on acoustic. You could do it on keys. Um, I don't generally use the dynamic bands on drums, but I've definitely used it on drums. Let's look at our mains. Our master. What I do with a master bus is this. First of all, I don't know if I'm doing this in the right order. So I start with the SSL compressor, and then I'll do J37. I'll do a video where I actually have licenses so we can look at the stuff. And then let's do, I usually put that's a system tuning plugin. With sending the left right into subs, this, subs left and right, I've been using this guy. My next video, I will definitely have licenses for all these plugins plugged in. So SSL compressor from the SSL-G bus compressor. J37 is a tape deck. Subalign is for delaying your subs to your mains, and then Tract is for system tuning. I typically don't run these plugins here. Yeah, I typically just get rid of these guys. And Smart is my system tuning. This is just to the send into the other computer that has Smart running. And then I might mess around with let's see. Vitamin is here. Vitamin is really cool. It's like a tone shaper, it's a harmonic distortion thing. You can shape the width of stuff with it. So you can take your high frequencies and go super wide on those, and then just get it more narrow as you move down to the low frequencies, or whatever you want to do. So there's some stuff you could do. Channels. Hey, let's take a look here. Snare drum. Okay, so I like to do on a snare drum the MEQ5. I like to do that guy. I like to do that on it because it just gives it a fatness. On overheads, I like to use let's find it. What do we call it again? It starts with a P. Okay. I like to do that. What I've found with this guy is when I've used it on overheads, you can actually make it so that only the snare triggers it. And so, like, I've had it where the cymbals, at least the meter's not moving on anything but snare hits. So now you don't have to worry about when you, and if you listen to it in the room, when you push your overheads up and he hits the snare when you're doing your overheads as a full kit capture, the snare doesn't rocket through the PA like it typically would. So Puig Child, amazing stuff. Hat. Let's take a look at some stuff with the hi-hat. So let's go back to here. Okay. So typically your problem stuff on a hi-hat is usually up in your sizzle stuff, right? Usually somewhere up around here. You boost, you find it, right? Find your ugliness, and then you just cut it down. And, go way too much and start pulling back until it's just right. So I found that if you use the proper microphone, for me, what makes a microphone really good is the least amount you have to do to that microphone on that source. So, like, I'm using a Lewitt condenser mic right now. Is that necessarily the best mic for my voice? Well, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But The question is, am I going to have to EQ like crazy in a live environment on this microphone? Now, I realize when you get into the really big stadiums, that cannot necessarily be a thing, where you might have to just crank on your EQs like crazy. But on a hi-hat, there have been just a couple of microphones I've used where you just place it right on a hi-hat and you don't even touch the EQ. You just do a high pass and you're done. And that's what really makes it sound good. What stands out for me. That's what I prefer. If the microphone is so good that you don't have to even touch anything other than high and low pass filters, that's huge. So yeah, microphone choice is a very big deal. Bass DI, bass amp. It's good to experiment with different kick drum microphones or mid-range microphones for your bass amp. Just experiment with mic choice, experiment with mic placement. This is really what it comes down to. What you have to do on drums is you have to tune them. If there's some overtones, you have to take care of them. You have to make it sound good to begin with. And then once you've tuned that within an inch of its life and it sounds right and it actually sounds good, now you get to look at microphone choices. Once you choose the correct microphone for that source, then you can choose placement and you start finding the correct placement for the drum. Once you have the placement correct, that's when you can go to your console. So you get your source right. You get it to sound right. Then you get the microphone that sounds right for that source. Then you get the placement right. Then you do stuff on the channel. I've got where recently we would tune the drums to the point where there was like no EQ on any drums and it was just dead on. Well, okay, so the kick drum did have some EQ. Yeah, there was some on the kick drum, but there was no fixing problems on it, on the microphone or on the channel. There wasn't any of that. It was basically Tom 1. This is what it looked like. Because we went to the source and we fixed the source. So that's really what your goal needs to be, is get your source right, then get the right microphone for that source, then get it in the right place, then go to the channel. Don't even do a plugin until you know that it sounds right. Then your plugins can become, I'm doing this for taste. Like, I really have started to love this, the API plugin on things. I've been loving that one. But yeah, so get your source fixed. Get the right mic for the source. Then place the mic right. Then you can go to your channel. So yeah, the big thing though is hopefully that these videos for console management that we're doing right now, hopefully they're just some ideas on how to get some stuff, get a starting point. These numbers are not set in stone, but this is my starting point. If you start at 100 hertz on Tom 1, Tom 2, and so on, there's your starting point. It's going to reduce massive amounts of time for when you're having to get things done. Get some dynamic EQs happening on your vocals. That'll be a huge help. Do that. It'll be great. It's even, C6 on a bass is really cool because then you can dip out some mids when you need to. You could sidechain stuff. You could sidechain a band on a dynamic EQ off of something else so that when that something else comes in, it dips down on that other one, and now you've created space where it's automatic. Here's a thought on a kick drum. This is not how you have to do it, but this is kind of what kick drums. I'm just picking some spots. I'm not doing these are the exact starting points. But this is what you'll do on a kick drum. I'm just grabbing it. I'm not even looking at the numbers. I'm just kind of doing some over exaggerated stuff to just give you an idea. The whole smiley face thing. It's kind of a smiley face. So there's your kick. You know, 39 hertz, maybe not. 524, well, that's pretty close. It's usually 4 to 500. So I mean, that's close. 3.5. Your ear resonates around 3K. So I mean, this is a pretty safe bet. You might end up there. High shelf, get some air on that kick. I mean, that may look crazy, but hey, who cares what it looks like? It's what it sounds like, right? So that could be a kick channel. Kick in is the slap. So all of your, just like all the slap and smack of a drum. Kick out is usually all the thud, what you feel. Snare top. Um, you know, Here I'm just kind of throwing it together real quick. This is not a what this isn't exact, but this is what a snare drum will look like in the end. You may end up looking like that on a snare drum. Tom 1. Toms can get buried, so you may end up just doing something like that. Cut some of that boxiness out, assuming you haven't tuned it, of course. If you tuned it, you probably won't have to go this dramatic and insane. It just depends on the situation, the venue, everything. It's all dependent, but this is what a tom may look like. Overheads. Sometimes people do this. If that's your thing, go ahead, but it's the way I look at it is, of course, you listen to it. Listen to what's coming through the speakers. But you're hitting a piece of metal with a wooden stick. If you can't hear that, there's something wrong. So I don't see the point. I don't see why you would need to. Now, it's always situation dependent. Of course it is. It always is. But I have never done an EQ like this on an overhead because it's a guy hitting a piece of metal with a wooden stick. So I don't need to crank the high frequencies because it's already there. Now, there are times, of course, I'm not in every single situation, so maybe you might have to sometimes. Sure. Yeah, it happens. Sure. But the way I see it is you're hitting a piece of metal with a wooden stick. There's ways to get these high frequencies to cut through without cranking it, Like you could just pull some of that down and you magically have more of this low frequency stuff and this high frequency stuff. Just by pulling this out of the way, it magically makes this section and that section louder. Kind of cool. Let's go back to this and do a flat. Okay. Bass guitar. String noise is usually around 2K. You're going to have some stuff in the mids that, this is kind of here. This is kind of maybe a problem frequency, maybe not. That one you can kind of stand out. You maybe have to pull it down. Somewhere in here is where your lows live. Okay. Then we looked at guitar. Oh, what's it doing to me? Yeah, I got to figure out what happened here. It crashed on me. Weird. Well, let's pull it back up. Yeah, so just it's always what does it sound like in the room you're in? But those initial high pass filters and low pass filters are usually where I start. That's what the walk-in scene. You walk into the festival and that's where you start. Now, every single one of those numbers changes. It does. And so every single one of those numbers will change. It's not going to be where Tom 1 is going to sit at 100. It's not. It's just, it'll move. It's all going to move. Like sometimes you need to move this one higher. Sometimes you got to go to, 200, 400, whatever. But my starting point is always 100 just because I have to be quick. Another thing with drums, you don't always have all the time in the world. So what I do is you're going to have the guy hitting the hi-hat most of the night. his cymbals most of the night, kick and snare every other beat, right? Kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. Hi-hat is pretty much every beat, every 16th note for the most part. So, because of that, what I do is I go to my toms. I worry about making sure that those sound the best. I'll roughen my kicks, my snares, those channels. I'll roughen the hi-hat, but then the toms, I'll spend more time on those because during the event you aren't necessarily going to be able to focus on them. Another thing, these knobs right here are pan knobs. If you can get a good mix in mono, you have a great mix in stereo. So, get a really good mono mix and then start panning things around. So, once everything sounds good in mono, that's when I start looking at, okay, let's do some panning on the snare. This is from front of house, so this is how I'm looking at it from the audience perspective. And I did that backwards. So, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3, and tom 4. And then something like that. So I pan my toms according to what I'm doing. Front of house, I'll do it from audience perspective. Mixing an album, I'll do it from band perspective. So these will all be backwards except for overheads. Except maybe these overheads may be flipped though. This is house left, house right. This may actually be stage left, stage right. So that would be a flip. But other than that, these would be that. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful at least or interesting. Feel free to comment things you would like to see. Ideas like, hey, I'd like you to try this or that. I've got videos coming up where I actually go and use a instrument. I just run through and I start just turning some knobs on a kick drum and a snare drum and a hi-hat, toms. I'm going to run through every channel and we're just going to see what we can come up with for sounds. But yeah, go ahead, click like, click subscribe, and feel free to comment any questions. So thanks for checking out my channel, and see you soon. Bye.